Hello, children. Today's story is The Ant and the Grasshopper. The Ant and the Grasshopper. There once was a very lazy grasshopper named Gale. At the very first hint of spring, when the ground had scarcely thawed and the buds on the trees had barely blossomed, Gale spent her days lounging in the sweet grass and singing to her heart's content. Unlike Gale, her neighbor Mimi, the ant, was very hard-working. As soon as the cold winter months were behind them, Mimi wasted no time preparing her home and collecting provisions for the upcoming winter. Every day, Gale watched Mimi busily bustle about. Not a moment was wasted, and there seemed to be no end to Mimi's hard work. Gale felt tired just watching her. She didn't understand why Mimi spent all of her time preparing for the winter to come when each day was filled with beautiful, warm, sunny weather. After all, summer was only about 3 months, and every moment should be enjoyed. One day, Gail invited Mimi to come and sing along with her. I don't have time for that, replied Mimi. I have chores to finish before next winter arrives. Why worry about all that now? Summer has only just begun, said Gale. You won't be thinking that when the cold weather returns, retorted Mimi. And with that, Mimi returned to her chores. Gale paid no attention. Mimi worked way too hard and was no fun at all. She probably didn't even know how to have fun. One day, she's going to wake up and see that life has passed her by, thought Gale. That night, Gale went home and continued to sing. She sang so loudly that Mimi couldn't sleep. That pesky grasshopper is going to regret all that singing, Mimi grumbled to herself as she hid her head under her pillow. The days passed. Summer was now coming to an end, and the grasshopper hadn't collected any provisions. One morning, Gale finally decided to collect a few fresh leaves. Along the way, she ran into Mimi, who was collecting fruit in her wheelbarrow. Mimi looked very tired. Why, Mimi, cried Gale, you look totally exhausted. I think you've worked too hard. Huffed Mimi. If I look tired, it's only because my grasshopper neighbor ruins my sleep every night with their terrible loud singing. Then Mimi picked up the handles of her wheelbarrow and continued on her way. Gail shrugged her shoulders and continued to collect leaves. Soon her stomach started to grumble, and she looked at her harvest, and her mouth watered. I should eat some of this right now while it's fresh, she decided. If I run out, I can easily collect more tomorrow. With that, Gail hungrily wolfed down the leaves until there was nothing left. Then next day, the sun shone so brightly that Gail decided to spend the day singing in the field instead of collecting leaves. I'll do it tomorrow, she reasoned. Summer is coming to an end, but I still have lots of time. Each day that passed was a little bit cooler than the day before, and Gail still hadn't collected any provisions. The trees had almost lost all of their leaves. Winter wasn't far off now. Mimi, who had finished harvesting her provisions and preparing for the cold winter months, peered out of her cottage window and saw her neighbor singing away. What a pest, thought Mimi. She better not count on me for any charity this winter. One morning, Gail awoke, shivering, covered in a blanket of snow. She sat up with a start. Oh no, she panicked. I sang so much I didn't even notice the time, and now winter is here and I have nothing to eat. The grasshopper traipsed through the deep snow with difficulty. A harsh wind blew around her. She had trouble going anywhere. Suddenly she spotted a single leaf dangling from a tree branch. Just as soon as she was about to reach the leaf, it was whisked away by a gust of wind. Oh, I'm so hungry, she wailed. Desperate, Gail continued on her way in search of shelter. She soon came upon the aunt's cottage. I can ask Mimi to lend me some food until spring, Gail thought. I'm sure she won't say no. Gail peered through Mimi's cottage window and saw Mimi and her family enjoying a hearty meal. The table was covered with the most delicious looking feast. There were leaves galore. The grasshopper knocked on the cottage door. She could she would give anything for a little piece of leaf, but Gail was so cold she fainted and collapsed on the doorstep. When Mimi answered the door, she found Gail in a heap on her doorstep. She hesitated for a moment. Well, she got what she deserved, thought the aunt, but still, I can't leave her out in the cold. With her family's help, Mimi brought Gail into the house and laid her in front of the fireplace to warm up. Soon Gail woke up, and the aunts offered her a bowl of hot soup to get her back on her feet. Please, Mimi, begged the grasshopper, don't send me out there. You were right, and I was very wrong. I wasted my time foolishly all summer instead of harvesting provisions as I should have. Mimi looked at Gail and said in a very serious tone, only those who have worked hard deserve to share the harvest. Gail sadly and slowly made her way to the cottage door. You sang all summer, added the aunt. Why don't you spend your winter dancing? Maybe that way you can entertain my family and me. It will be your contribution. Ooh, a smile spread across Gail's face. She thanked her neighbor and began to sing and dance right away. Mimi and her family joined in. Gail was so very grateful for Mimi's kindness. She had helped her despite the grasshopper's laziness and lack of organization. Gail spent the winter entertaining the ants in their cottage, and then once again spring arrived. Gail joined Mimi in the meadow. She built her very own wheelbarrow with leaves and blades of grass and set to work gathering provisions for the following winter. She had learned her lesson in the importance of planning ahead. After all, nothing was stopping her from singing while she worked. As for Mimi, the past winter with Gail had shown her the value and importance of having fun. Don't think for a second she didn't work as hard now. In fact, she worked harder than ever. But every now and then she would pause, and the ant and the grasshopper would sing their hearts out together. The end.